we've got Pam, we've got four of us. Hey! We wanted to talk today about what, if anything, people would like to see happen on Prospect Farm. If it's good the way it is, or if we want any improvements, and what those improvements would be. And the questions I would have to kind of guide that would be like, for whom, what kind of recreation, when would it occur, who would do the maintenance, who would do the building, how would we pay for it all, would we get volunteers, would we hire people, if we go for it that way, or do we just like it the way it is and think good enough is good enough. So I kind of, in the agenda, I'm just going to talk about Prospect Farm. I will skip all the other things that we're doing with the Conservation Commission. First thing we could do is just leave it exactly the way it is. And then I'll skip on to number 2, which would be improvement of signs or maps. Most of the trails here are actually roads, so personally I think they're pretty self-evident, but they're all signed as cross-country ski trails, and we use the cross-country ski trails on our map. So from there, the things that I think we could do would be there are there's 3 guiding maps I use to think about Prospect Farm. One is the map we made. Second is Jackson Cross Country Ski Trail map, and the third is like the AMC White Mountain Guide and its description of trails. From the AMC White Mountain Guide, there are 2 trails basically here, if you read that book. One is the Hutmans Trail, which starts down there, off town property, and never hits town property. The second is the Halls Ledge Trail, which starts right here, runs right up the road, goes to the viewpoints, and ducks down to 16 on the other side. And if you use the cross-country map, that is actually, the Wildcat Valley Ski Trail, and then eventually it turns into the Halls Ledge Extender Trail. So we could go to the Forest Service, ask them to make signs for us with their standard, and label this the one hiking trail that makes it kind of out to the world. Would be one thing to do. So this would say Halls Ledge Hiking Trail all the way up with the standard brown USFS signs, even though it wouldn't say Forest Service because it's private land or town land, until you get to the Heideland, basically. The third option would be, I guess, ask Ski Touring to make their signs bigger or do something with those names, or distribute this map in a different way. And the way I would think of doing that would be have it in a easily printable form online, because this is already online on the Jackson Conservation Commission website, although it's hard to print because it's huge. So we could come up with something basically that 8.5 and 11 that you could print and would have it on it. So those are kind of the options that I've thought of, and I don't know if people have thoughts starting there.
I believe you're looking at it as a hiker or a skier. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how many people actually come up here, as I did in June, with somebody who was basically reminiscing.
Yeah.
He'd been up here as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So in our case, we didn't know how to get to any of the farm foundations. Yeah. We stumbled on them. Mm-hmm. As I was just saying, we took pictures of this with our digital cameras, so we're trying to see the map in with flies crawling on our hands, with the sun reflecting on the camera. We're trying to see the map and figure out where we were.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know, maybe the Historical Society or maybe the school kids could do a little description. There are only 4 foundations. At each foundation, this was so-and-so's farm. They, if it's known when they lived here, how they were related to the other farms. How does it happen there are 4 farms up here?
Yep.
I grew up here. This was the first time I'd ever been up here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know who the Bakers were, but who were the other people? And were they related? Was it all basically one family? And then the other thing, we didn't know when we got up there and saw multiple roads which way to go to get to the Baker farm.
Yeah.
So that's my suggestion. It's just a little bit more
Yeah,
for history, for those that are detail-oriented and want to know whose foundation it was.
I think it's a great idea. I'll try to separate it a little bit into keeping the navigation and then like a history tour kind of separate. I've got that a little later on the agenda, which is something that where all the information on this sign came from George. And one of the ideas would be to make those signs and then, whatever we need to do with a map to make them easily accessible, so you didn't just have to wander around to them, that kind of idea. So one of the ideas that we had basically to develop slightly further would be to have those signs at the cellar holes and have them labeled on a map.
And I mean, if somebody's staying at an inn in Jackson and wants to know, an easy, short
It is, yeah.
outing. Is anybody suggesting it to them?
That, you know, and this is one of those
So,
things. I'm not
I mean,
sure.
Is there a demand,
Yes.
really?
I think there is. That's a great question. And
Well, and
something
Hall's Ledge is one of the cheapest views around.
yeah, Hall's Ledge does have a nice view. Something I kind of hear from people, and it's kind of, you know, do we want to promote it to every, you know, how many ever...
No, you don't want it like Jackson Falls.
yeah.
Did you come by there just now?
We'll need more parking spots if
Whoa.
it's like Jackson Falls.
Or Diana's Baths.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
God, no.
That's
You know,
all.
and I don't know how to, like, promote it a little bit
So this
without
is
being
part of
like,
your-
oh, you
This
know,
is part of your list of you know,
yeah.
uses.
I'd point out as well, we started on the idea of putting signs at each cellar hole.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to track the genealogy or the
Yeah.
sequence that people owned and trying to get some more image because my first try, it didn't last. I don't know what happened to them. But there's a couple other places I'm trying to find some imagery that would cover those particular places. We have the Baker place,
You have the baker.
but there's others.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we might as well just talk about that part too. Kind of what I don't know if you guys have walked on the loop behind the library, the Mystery House loop.
Yeah.
And if you've seen the little signs we put up at the end of last summer, so they're
It's frustrating over there without them.
they're 8x8 little informational signs, you know, and so there's like the little ice dam that used to be part of the hotel, so it sounded kind of, you know, it'll be like a little blurb about why this dam is here and what it did. You know, kind of what I picture would be something similar to that. We can get those printed relatively cheaply. You know, like if say we did 10, it would be somewhere in the order of $250 to get them printed, and those signs would last probably 10 years because they're weatherproof-ish. So I was kind of picturing taking, you know, what George has found, and he'd suggested the idea of trying to make a story of not just what the cellar hole is, but kind of the story of settlement in Jackson in particular, kind of starting with like what was granted to, you know, rich people a long time ago, and they handed it off to others who try to like actually farm, and then it didn't work, and you know, whatever the story arc would be, try to kind of like tie the particular cellar holes into that.
Wonder if we can figure out a way. One of the nice things about that Mystery House loop is the way we got the kids involved. I don't know if you went
Yeah,
around
like
that,
with
but
the
you hear the
sign-
story?
Like they voted on the name, or
They not only that, we took them out and took a tour up. It was in the winter. And guys were slipping and sliding. In fact, one of them wanted to name it the Slippery Hill Loop. But yeah, they all came up with names, and they had a competition. I think the teacher did an initial screening to get out the really wacko ones. But it might be something, and the thought was, hey, get the community a little bit more involved in some of this stuff. Maybe have them do work on some of the genealogy of this thing. They could work with you, and you know, whatever. I think the teachers would probably really go for that. And again, it gets the town involved more because really the town doesn't know much of what we do. They don't, you know, you put these things up. Yeah, come help us with knotweed. Okay. Yeah, come up to Prospect Farm. Well, here we are.
yeah.
You know, it's and that's, you know, just a suggestion. Maybe if we could figure out a way
Yeah.
to do that, it might be.
And I kind of picture the way it would work, you know, it's like George and then at least some of the 7 of us on the Conservation Commission and others kind of like starting making a first stab and then getting everybody involved in the editing and, you know, throughout the winter with the idea of getting them up for next summer kind of would kind of be the timeline I would see on that. You know, try to like finish out the summer with just the fall stuff.
Yeah, we're talking about signage, the commonality in the signage. It seems like, for instance, the 2 signs here were put up by the cross-country folks.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, they're different signs. Do we have a common style and everything, whatever we put up, so it stays consistent? Your point about getting up there and, you know, you kind of kind of
What's the
track
paw
from
print?
one place to the other.
I'm agreeing with you. What's the paw
It's
print?
for dog accessible
ski
cross-country
trails.
ski trails.
Oh,
Oh, of course, obviously.
Yeah, and that would be a great question. I think
Yeah,
in
it is.
I
general,
thought it was their country. And
No, if you get their map shows it on their map, so that
Yeah.
if you've gone to the Jackson Ski Touring Foundation and picked up one of their maps, you know what the symbol's for. In fact, we didn't know what it was for either until we looked at our map.
Well, just on part of this, the maps and all, you were mentioning the Huntsman Trail and the Hall Trail.
Yep.
There's also the Dana Place Trail here.
which isn't in those books as an official trail. It's only on like the ski touring maps as a trail.
That's a ski tour trail.
But it does go through
Yes.
town land and
And
connect
Forest
to
Service.
something on the other side.
Yeah.
That's
Yep. So those are all currently all of the trails that are used for ski touring, which are all of the roads basically in Prospect Farm, still have their ski touring signs. And when we made this map, we just adopted the ski touring names. For example, this road right here is actually Forest Service Road, whatever the number is, but it's also the Boggy Brook Ski Trail. We just call it the Boggy Brook Trail. This is this is Town Road, whatever, and turns
So
into
you still have Orchard
yeah.
and
Yep.
Dana, and there's a third one. Yeah.
So we've just adopted the ski touring names, and we just use them all year round. And ski touring leaves their signs up, and it seemed the easiest
Yeah.
way to do it without having to, have multiple
That's when most
signs.
People are out here anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of what they know
So,
it as.
yeah, you have to
Trouble.
concentrate on summer use,
Yeah.
because obviously nobody sees a foundation in the winter.
No,
Yeah.
then the issue, again, summer use, it's a Class 6 road, and if you're coming up here, you better not have your Toyota Corolla.
Yeah.
There's a good stone in there that's going to take your
yeah.
Royal Panda.
Yeah. My Prius has about 5-inch clearance, so what you do is you
Exactly,
go over.
but I don't think you
Yeah.
want to send people up the
No, you
road
don't.
on a regular basis who are going to
Yeah.
not have the smarts that you
Yeah.
have
At your
to
own
avoid
risk.
it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's something we could, if we decided to go with the printable 8.5
Right.
by 11, it could,
I came around
could have
by
that.
Gale Pond,
Yeah. and this is
Fortunately,
a big
I
road
was-
right now.
yeah.
Most of
completely
the
on
roads
the
have
right
been
side of the road.
really
Massachusetts
good for a
car
while.
sitting right there.
Yeah, so
The point on the road in the rock,
Bad
Saturday I
place,
was
right
up and
on
there
this
was a couple
turn.
down the
If
parking
I'd
lot
been
back
driving
here.
in the
Yeah.
middle of the
They're
road,
underneath
as
looking
many
at their car 'cause
Massachusetts
they-
Can you?
people do.
Uh-oh.
Quiet, please.
And so they were
Oh,
going up
no.
to the Hall Edge Trail, and I said, just as a heads up, there's places you have no cell phone coverage, so you ought to know where you're going, but they didn't have a map, we'll follow it and so forth. So
Yeah.
back to the signage thing, I think we could take a look at, make sure it's clear. And
Yeah, I feel like for me, and I could, like, signing the Hall's Ledge Trail from here,
Yeah.
would be the easy one to add to.
It's
That
a
would make,
destination, I think, whereas the other ones are a little bit more of a.
yeah,
Wandering. There was
Yeah.
a problem last spring, and it may have been corrected by now, but it was an old cross-country ski map that was nailed, where are you sort of thing. And knowing that most maps go north to south and left and right, east and west, well, it was on the south side of the road, so that it was completely reverse of what you were supposed to be going.
yeah,
And I could imagine some poor soul, tired, confused, lost,
yeah,
trying to find their car and going, just like the map said, to the right when it was really over here to the left.
yeah.
And those sorts of things, I think, are almost, you're better off not having them or doing something else.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I guess I hike often, and I kind of usually picture if someone's going hiking, they've already taken the time to buy a book and a map and read about where they're going and have done all of that. So the time you get here, it's
Right.
but
You're
I could be very wrong on that.
Don't you
So with
subscribe
some
to
of that-
Appalachia to read the
Yeah.
accidents section?
most people get out of the car and say, I think I'll go for a walk, and then ask you, where are they when they're off on the road.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
And I can't get anything on 911,
All right. Well, I think it'd be easy to take that and change it into something that could be on the Jackson Conservation Commission part of the town website, and it could be printable, so you could just go there and print it out, as opposed to having them here. I know the school has theirs there. I just feel like in general, once you start putting paper maps out, it's hard to keep it up and make sure they're there and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I would go that route, but I don't know if there are other
Would
options.
you include Mr. Lyons' name on his property?
Well, I guess we didn't when we made that. We didn't
Ask
ask. I guess if I were him, I'd rather not without being asked. But I don't know.
Right. I mean, is
Well, I
Valentine
think
on there?
somebody would like to know it's private property, maybe that.
I think we have Gray labeled as private
Yeah.
property on the legend.
Valentine, we didn't like Valentine.
Is land still owned by Ballantyne?
Yes,
Really?
the Jackson cross country lot is on his land.
Yeah.
Oh,
Private land isn't identified.
Oh, is the Gray not labeled as private?
No, it just shows gray.
Oh yeah,
It's color coded.
Well, it's private in the legend, but not.
no,
It doesn't.
The owners.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I don't think you typically put people's names on.
No, my land's on there, so I agree.
Pencil that in.
All right, so for the sign part of
Cold
it,
water.
we'll try to get the Hall's Ledge Trail actually signed.
Bathrooms.
Keep this cross country trail names otherwise, which are up, and use this map. Try to make a printable version of the map. through the fall, we'll come up with a committee for the history tour with George as part of it, hopefully, if you don't mind.
Sure, I'll be glad to.
And then number 4 and 5 were items that Larry said he had heard kind of from townspeople last fall when there was the whole, like, do we need to come up with rules for what's happening up here? And the 2, Larry said he had a couple people suggest that we try to make more loop trails up here. Brian, I'm just going to scoot over here for a second. I mean, currently there are, everything here is out and back. You can go up to Hall's Ledge and back, and then the 2 cross-country ski trails kind of break off to the left as you go uphill, and then you can retreat back. You can make loops off of town property, off of them. And then on the right, there's 2 little loops, the Beth Hendricks loops and the Hubs loop. So with Larry's idea of making further loop trails on town land, I kind of think would be a little difficult, because basically we could connect the Orchard Trail, I think, to the Dana Place Trail and maybe back down. So basically making a trail parallel to this main road that catches these left-hand branches to bring people back to the parking lot would more or less be the only option that I would see.
If it's on town land, you mean?
If it's on town land only. And I didn't know if anyone, if the people that made those suggestions to Larry this fall had anything in mind.
Yeah.
Or I don't know if you know who it was, and I assume they're not here now, but...
I think it was all just about loops. Looping. I think it was all just about looping.
Okay, but no particular, like, I wish there was a trail from this point to that point.
Yes, I think there was one.
Yeah, I wish there were, usually when you go out, you wish there were a loop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other
Because
option
just
would be
turning around and walking on the other side of
more
the trail.
work, or
doesn't
more
work.
coordination up front would be to connect loop trails that include other property, which would basically be, possibly the private land and onto Forest Service land, which is what Ski Touring is proposing in their long-term plan. They want to connect this, which they call the UST Ski Trail, which is the end of this Forest Service logging road. They want to more or less connect it up to the Orchard Trail through the chunk of private land.
Yeah.
We could maybe try to work with them and be like, all right, if you're doing that, maybe we could connect up to Hall's Ledge, or connect back to Dana Place. Those are kind of the 2 ways I could see making loops. Would either be trying to involve the Forest Service and private landowners to run trails across all the different
Get an
properties.
easement from them.
Yeah, which would be a little more.
Are there any things out there right now that just aren't being used as trails, that are not listed on the map?
There's skid roads in between the Dana Place Trail and the Orchard Trail. From basically this pond, you could more or less use skid trails to get you to some portions of this, depending how you want to do it. Be a lot of brush moving, and then the second part of all these questions would be, who is the small army that is going to do this, whatever we decide to do? Will it be the 7 of us on the Conservation Commission for a summer? Will we be getting volunteers from the town? Will we be hiring others to do it? And then kind of the long-term question that I see is who maintains it. Because currently we're in this, I think, really brilliant position where everything here is maintained either by people getting contracts to log on Forest Service land, and they have to improve the town roads when they go to the Forest Service land. We're on a key parcel, because to get to all the Forest Service land, you have to come through the town land. And whenever they log out here or here, they have to improve the roads over which they truck. And if we choose to log on town land, then we get the roads improved also at that point. So the major road improvement is done strictly as a byproduct of logging. And any actual maintenance of fallen trees, brushing, that sort of thing on the trails on the town property is done by Ski Touring in the fall. So currently the Conservation Commission does no work, really to maintain these existing trails.
We just pay to have
You should
small mowing done.
Yeah, so we pay to
go with the status quo.
Yeah.
There are an awful lot of loops
Yeah.
that could be possible.
Yep.
And that's a lot of
that's
work.
a good point. I did forget that. So currently we pay to have the big south view mowed, a little bit of mowing at the picnic table at Hall's Ledge, and then the orchard is mowed, and the cellar holes are also mowed. So we usually get that done in the fall, and that's usually almost all of our $2,000 budget goes to that mowing from the regular annual chunk of the town budget. So it's kind of the status, what of it is. So any expansion, I think, would be probably getting a lot of volunteers, to do a lot of it, which I would see being difficult, but potentially exciting. And the only way maybe that we could pick up work for it would be if we could work with Ski Touring, they would do the maintenance once we help to get it going, that sort of thing.
Well, if they turn it into a ski trail also.
So if if we take the idea of the loops, and if they wanted to put a loop kind of where we were thinking of putting a loop, being like, all right, we'll all work together to build it, and then they'll maintain it as part of their annual.
But they still don't do a lot of summer maintenance. Like
They don't do summer
even
maintenance.
like the ski trails, like the Beth Hendricks and the
Yeah, up
Hubs
here.
Loop up high. Like when we walk that, it's high grass. It's
Yeah, you can't
overgrown.
walk them.
Yeah.
Same thing with
pretty
Marsh
difficult,
Brook.
yeah.
Yeah.
But they do like to keep, don't they like to keep the saplings down?
Yeah, they basically
Yeah.
mow it
They
once
mow
a
once
a
fall.
year.
And
That
yeah,
that does something, but it's not
that
like
is a good point.
a
So,
really enjoyable,
Yeah.
nice
so
summer
something
hiking
I guess
trail.
we could do instead of creating new trails to have loops, we could basically try to create an adopt a trail program or have.
That's what I was going to suggest: is adopt a trail and get people to
You know,
sign up. Like this section of the loop is this person, and so on.
and we'd have to then set our standards for what we're doing. You know, when I worked on a Forest Service trail crew for 2 years, and we wouldn't touch it if it was something that would die back in the fall and not leave a trace the next year. So you'd only cut it if it was a tree. If it was something like a grassy road, it's like, all right, if people want to walk on the grassy road, they have to figure out how to walk on the grassy road. You know, but we could choose as a town to be better than that, and say we would like to mow, hand mow a path through the grassy road.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take even just a handful of people walking consistently.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
the trails are definitely more packed down, I'd say, than I remember in years past.
Well,
They're
and
more-
like the one up to Hall's Ledge, the grass grows up, but there's still always like a single
Yeah, yeah.
cat track
Yeah, yeah.
from people using it. But then you go off on Hub's Loop, and it's like no one goes there, and
Yeah.
you're up to your knees in ferns and stuff.
Well, maybe if we, as part of the promoting the history tour, there's the Baker Cellar Hole over there. If we start to have people use those loops
Yeah.
more as opposed to
Well,
just
that's-
out to it,
Yeah, if people
it
use
would
them more.
the foot
often.
traffic could keep it down as opposed to us mowing it.
Yeah.
How much use is there made up here in the summertime?
How much use is there?
Yeah.
We'd have to
Yeah.
do an
I don't
actual
know,
survey,
just a
but
curiosity thing.
we
I hardly
walk
ever see anyone
Snoopy
up
up
here.
here
I
pretty
come up
frequently, and I'd say there's
five-
rarely
4 or
much.
5 times a week.
Yeah, on the town land,
You're
I
up
don't
there.
know. I think there's a handful of people
Yeah.
going up the Bog Brook and the Wildcat Valley Trail to
Yeah.
the Carter Notch area.
I'd say there's more doing that than coming up here.
Yeah. So you'll see
Parking lot
people overnight
seems to be-
sometimes.
Used to capacity oftentimes, but
And then in the fall, the other recreation we get is hunting, both on town and off town property. And town residents have the nice bonus of being able to drive in to pick up game in the fall, which you can't on the Forest Service land. And I guess in the fall I see slightly more people out, kind of walking the roads for the foliage time than in the summertime.
I was just curious.
Yeah, but I would say it's very low.
Yeah.
Usage
It's
is
like
very low.
3 or 4 moose to show up every once in a while.
Yeah.
I've never seen one. I see all kinds of tracks.
I know they're always
Oh,
right
you
down the
mean
middle
moose
of
signs.
the
Tracks are
road.
here for sure.
Yeah.
Through our driveway.
Yeah.
Just put a moose sign, moose 6,
I
Yeah.
moose
think
crossing,
so.
and they'll know where to
moose
go.
crossing.
Yeah.
Next mile and a half.
Tell
moose
my
crossing.
last thought,
They're very
the ski touring guys put up their sign, "Welcome to Prospect Farm."
Yep.
Of course, Brooks, what's it name?
Valentine's.
Should we have anything? I know this is probably intended as a welcoming thing, but you come up here and there's nothing that identifies it. You see up here. The other part of that is this sign here bugs me. It's a personal thing. One of my children that doesn't live very close by out in California, but anyway, he said, I looked at that. I didn't know if I could go in there or not. And what I get to is it's a very unfriendly sign. If we want
Yeah, it doesn't say walkers invited.
No,
or-
Walkers. We love walkers.
Well,
Just
maybe
keep
we
your
should-
cars out.
We could switch that
Well-
to foot traffic welcome.
Yeah.
Just maybe in
Town
addition
residents
to
can-
it, because I think it does a good job of keeping out the biggest problem, and maybe we just need to put in addition to it a welcome foot traffic.
Yep.
Because
Yeah, but it's
Or like
just,
the little hiker
It is
sign.
kinda clear,
If we
though,
make
that,
a
you know, there are trails up there because you've got the kiosk with all the signs. You know.
Yeah.
but
But it's always
I
nicer.
know what you mean.
Yeah.
If
Anyway,
we
that's
make
it.
a-
That's
Yeah, it's kind of in your face.
if we make
Yeah.
a Hall's Ledge sign for the Hall's Ledge Trail, then that
I
Yeah.
think that
Would help
that
clarify
based on the
Yeah.
conversation I had
little
with these
bit.
folks Saturday
Yeah.
down
Yep.
here.
This way to the interesting cellar hole. Cellar
Yeah.
holes.
Yep.
Well, the sign could simply say pedestrians only because no cars.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah,
Yeah.
people try to get
And
around it.
an ATV could get in
Oh
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
yes, the sign is very unfriendly.
Yeah, that is a good point. Well, we can see maybe we have one kicking around. The Forest Service also doesn't have their gate with a nice sign that way. Normally, the Forest Service has their standard foot traffic welcome, you know,
Yeah.
unauthorized vehicle use not allowed.
Yep.
And that sign has nothing on it currently that heads out that
Well,
way.
the selectmen put this one up, or the road crew, or somebody.
So the only thing that's really missing is foot traffic welcome.
Yeah, I think if there's a foot traffic welcome,
Like
you
said,
would.
the sign.
Well, and this way to Prospect Farm.
Yep. Yeah,
Well,
I guess we could
but
put
I
a,
mean,
Walk your dog up.
yeah, we could
You have
put
to
a,
remember,
A sign like
everyone
Wild
seems to
Trails.
forget that there is a map here that does tell you.
yeah, I
This
guess we
is how you
could,
get to Prospect Farm. I
we
mean,
could add a
I
sign
know
to
there
it, like
isn't-
welcome to the, you know, Prospect
Yeah, but
Farm.
if you've left your glasses home.
Should've probably stayed home.
I've always felt that mileages are missing on this map because people
Yeah.
look at this and I don't even know, is there a scale on it somewhere?
No, isn't there?
Because it
There's a
doesn't
scale here.
say, but it's in feet.
Aren't you good with
I mean,
1,800 feet at a time?
I keep doing that.
I don't know. I've had
roughly a mile.
when we come up here, I've had a lot of people ask me like, how far do I have to go to get to the view?
If we
You
could-
know, and it's like I think it's a mile
Maybe
and
you
a
just
half,
do the one.
roughly.
Just do Hall's Ledge.
Yeah,
Just make
if we
that
got the
the
Halls
list.
Ledge trails,
That's
I
probably
don't know
the
if the
big
Forest Service would make them for us because it's on private land, even though it's, well, it is their trail. But they have a standard where it would be like the name of the trail, the mileage to like 2 destinations. So it would probably be like mileage to the view, mileage to Route 16. And then normally in the upper right hand corners, there's the initials of the landowner and the initials of the maintenance organization. You know, so for us it would be like
Ah.
JCC. I don't know, maybe just JCC.
Yeah. Right.
If it's something as simple as what they have for like Ripley Falls or Thurston
Yeah.
Falls, it's an hour in, hour out
Yeah.
kind of thing. One
Not right
point
now.
2 miles.
And that gives
Yeah,
you some
we could add that to this.
perspective,
Yeah.
too.
That would be
Yeah.
easy. And
Yeah.
You can
and
relate
cost a lot
that
of money.
distance to all the other things when you see that too.
Yep. Okay. So for the trails thing, basically, maybe we'll try to get volunteers, go back to the signage more or less, and not go with development unless it ends up with what
Yeah, I mean, I
Ski Touring's
think
doing.
we still could be the people who
Doesn't look.
Yeah.
rush around and see if we see something that jumps out at you, and maybe down the road, you know, see a path of least resistance. We could talk with amongst ourselves and Jackson Ski Tour. And
Yep.
I mean, we could make some sweet loops if we go outside town land too.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to bring up is the mill or the old
the old sluice.
off like by Wildcat River.
Yeah, Wildcat
It's like
Brook.
right around in here, right?
This is where's Boggy Brook Road? Yeah, it's right.
It's up here, right? Is it north of? It's up from the.
This is
Yeah.
this is the road, I think.
So the other idea that we've had is there, on an old Conservation Commission map, there's a trail that
So it's
basically
like-
continues. If you go up to the orchard and you go out on the
like
Forest
right
Service
here.
road that takes a right,
Doesn't even
there,
come
there's
up
an old
with
map
the
that
road
says two falls, you know, like a trail to the falls, which is somewhere out on Forest Service property on the Wildcat Brook, which is a branch of the
Yeah.
Wildcat River.
Oh, neat.
So the other idea that people had suggested was trying to make a loop that starts on the town property, goes on the Forest Service, and then like gets caught basically on this road down at the bottom.
This I think would be a really cool one to
And-
have that go across.
But that gets back into the whole like
I think
you
the
know,
whole
building it,
thing's-
maintaining it, and that
I think
would
the
probably
whole thing, by the way, is the Wildcat Brook. Isn't that right? If you look at the maps, everybody calls it the Wildcat River.
You
but I
know-
think from beginning to end.
Martha might know because the maps
Well, there's two.
probably aren't consistent.
There is a Wildcat Brook, and
When
there
I
is a
was
Wildcat
growing up,
River.
I was told that Jackson Falls was Wildcat
Well, I
Brook.
checked. I heard that from you. I checked some of the maps, and a lot of them just say Wildcat
It's
Brook.
river
all the
higher
way
up,
down.
it's brook farther down. It doesn't make any sense.
It
So-
was the east branch of the Elias River.
Oh,
well,
No,
no.
Elias.
But Martha, it isn't anymore.
Early deeds.
It's not very good
show-
marketing.
Well, actually, there's a Shapley painting called On the Ellis River that's clearly done at the bridge below the green at Eagle Mountain House. So,
But it wasn't even the Ellis River, it was the Elias. They got the L's and I's mixed up.
well, people do that on the internet all the time.
Anyway.
we'll have to
Come
work
on.
on our names. All right,
How are you going to
so maybe we'll more or less put the trail development on the back, and try to focus on the other stuff first. And then
signage?
the signage, getting a printable 8.5 by 11 map that basically would be taking a piece of this and maybe adding some more information to it, and then working on how we could incorporate the cellar hole tour and signs to it.
Do we try and get maps to the local inns and hotels?
That's a
You
good
know,
question.
If a lot of people I know, when I'm staying someplace, I'll go up to the front desk and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, you know, what do you recommend? I got a free day."
Yep.
And I say, "Well, go up to, you know, you feel like walking, go up to Prospect Farm. Here's a map."
Yep.
My guess is that the primary season for this would likely be in the fall for leaf
Yeah.
peepers. I mean, we have people come here in the summer and they're
Yeah.
going to go to Jackson Falls. They're not going to walk through the bug-infested forest. But
Yeah.
for the most part, but in the fall, people like to be out with the leaves and the color,
Sure.
and they like to see panoramas like that.
Tin Mountain Conservation
If we
has
have
one
one.
online that people print out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Same
Sure.
thing
Yeah.
you're looking at. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Their trails are also really well
They are very well
laid
marked.
out. I mean, like, it's impressive.
need
Every
Leslie.
single possible junction, there are arrows. What'd you say?
So we need Leslie.
Leslie, where are you?
I was
Tin
wondering
Mountain?
who Leslie's
The trails
volunteers
over
are.
Yeah.
Are they
Tin
Tin
Mountain?
Mountain members? Who are they?
I don't know if they're all members. That's a good question. I do know she has like a day, at least one
She
day in the
gets
spring.
that work done. Yeah.
Yep.
Would it be possible at some time, and this is just a real crazy left brain, right brain, town picnic up here sometime?
Yeah.
Some spring town before the tourists come. For us guys,
Nature walk for the kids.
sure.
Right after the orchard gets mowed in the
Well,
fall.
When they find out
All
there's
the
no
kids.
connection,
When there's no
they'll quit.
brambles.
There's no what?
When they find out there's no coverage up here, they'll quit.
No service.
Yeah.
Is there,
That would be really
is
fun.
there any way that you could count the people that come up here?
We could, and
Put
this
a
Forest
can.
Service
Would it?
probably could.
Yeah.
We could. I mean,
get
I
a
can,
log?
Yeah, I can tell
A
you.
blackboard with hash marks, please.
Yeah, I can
Draw
tell
a
you.
line
what
for your
the
visit.
Forest Service puts out logs because they maintain like a whole use schedule of high to low use trails, and
Yeah.
you put out a self-register, and then the seasonal employees, I was once one, go and watch it to actually count the people that sign into the thing.
Or you can get one of those motion
You know.
cameras
Yeah, I
So
was
we
just
could
going to
do
say, get
that
a
they use
Yeah.
for animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cams.
sure.
Yeah.
Can cams.
Can cams.
Yeah,
Hilarious.
we could try the red.
Our
Then you
next
find
meeting,
out
we're
who
gonna
really
just
shows
sit
up
there and
there.
watch the game cam.
That would be really
Can you
funny.
rent
Just saying,
one?
this is
I mean,
being.
Why
Yeah.
is it only
Really
me?
I mean,
great.
I guess we could try a town.
No, because we're
People
wondering how
free
many
booze
people
Bye.
actually come up.
We know you're here.
You can get a
So
GoPro
funny.
Is there
and
a
just
way-
change it every couple of days.
Yeah. Or
Came up
Yeah.
for your little outdoor
You think
romp and
town
got
residents
caught.
would
Isn't
respond to like a survey
Yes.
being like, how often do you use Prospect
that
Farm, that
your
kind of
husband
thing?
on the
You could do it at town meeting. Why
nobody
not?
responds to surveys.
Town meeting when
It's a
everyone's
waste of
there.
time.
Check off. They're the most involved people in
That's
town.
probably
Sure.
the best way to do it at the
Yeah.
town meeting.
Oh, this
I
is
think with the average age in Jackson, there aren't a lot of people coming up here.
Huh. But, I mean, I
Please,
think
we
should
rented
keep
the peppers up here. Hank and I had gone to the top and came down.
There are
There
the
are the peppers going
exceptions.
right up the hill.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we should just go after what we know we can work on, like getting the Halls Ledge Trail well signed and
Yep, getting the maps.
Probably
I think
some,
some-
it's been a while since I've
Start
been up there,
simple
but
and
Yeah.
start with the best ones
Yeah,
first.
some
Yeah,
little bit
get a
of
little
clearing
hanging
was
fruit.
done. The
Don't
last
really
time
see
I was
there.
up there, you could barely struggle your way through so
Where
you
was
could
this?
get that Hall's Ledge.
Oh,
Has
yeah.
that been cleared out at all?
oh yeah.
It's about a year ago I was up there and it was,
You
It's
mean
grown.
to get like all the way to the edge of the
Yes,
clearing? Yeah, it's
yes.
pretty weedy
yeah.
through there,
Yeah.
I think.
You mean like the
brushy.
Mount Washington view, or
Yeah,
this?
yeah, Mount Washington.
That one is growing
That's the
up.
only one that's worth watching.
Well, the southern
said
view
that's
is
the
really
The
Yeah.
southern view is
Valley.
yeah. Yeah, we could either try to include that as part of mowing and just go up. It looks like it would be like 20 feet of softwoods.
just
Yeah.
downs. I thought it was awesome.
Does
I
the
was up there.
town own the picnic
I think
table,
it's
or is
on
that
an
on
old,
National
old
Forest
postcard.
land?
It's
From like
on town land, but we don't. No one seems to
20s
know the
maybe.
history of the picnic table. Who
wide
decided to put it
open.
there? Who paid for it? How it got
And
there? And it is falling
Chris
apart. I
Doucette
guess
It
that
is
would be
old.
that'd be the other question. Do we want to replace the
gonna do
picnic
that
table,
now.
or when it dies, does it just go away and we keep the viewpoint?
Put a
I
few
like
big
the
rocks
table.
there instead.
Yeah, I think it's a nice touch.
I like the table
Yeah.
actually.
I'm a big
I think
fan.
It's really cool.
Let it die and you can put a sign like the cellar holes.
Historical
picnic table.
All right. Well, that's everything I had. All the items I had on the agenda. Any other things from
Besides walking.
besides walking, which we can talk about whether we want to do that with the imminent thunderstorm or not.
I know where I'm
I
going.
think what you were saying is just to reemphasize, to reemphasize getting a view up there at the picnic table, getting it back before it just gets too big
Yeah.
for people to go up and cut down would be really super.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's what I've heard most in terms of people even in the winter going up there, remembering the view from 1974.
Yeah.
We could open it up to Christmas tree harvesting. Maybe. I mean,
you go.
there's really good trees up
And-
there right in
Well,
front of
yeah,
you.
and get a fee. Raise some money for the conservation.
Yeah.
Can I suggest benches rather than a picnic table?
No. You can suggest it, of course.
Sit on it.
How,
No.
how
We already have
come?
44 benches.
We have
Just
44
curious.
benches
Yeah.
in this town.
No, I don't mean memorial benches. I
Just
Would you
how
like
come?
that
How come you like
mean
a
Greg
bench better than?
Soul's log bench, is like the one in front of the Sunrise Shack. Well, you could build a bench.
Oh, it's got to be varnished every couple of years, though.
Table.
Oiled. We'll go with
still
oil
like
instead.
Picnic table,
For a place
they
for the-
fall
Yeah.
apart.
Nice
Did
big
you see
rock.
the one that was at the old library that we went to move it and it